In June we had a good harvest of hay off higher redlands, and Mother didn't seem worried anymore after that. But at home none of us ever said a word about the ploughing match. Mother just didn't want to hear about it. I could tell that. But I can mind Father and me talking of nothing else all summer and autumn. Father would say things like, well, if any horses can do it, then it's Joey and Zoe. And you come out on top after 4 years in the mud of Flanders like Joey has, and then you can win a little ploughing match standing on your head in your sleep. I tried to believe him, but I just couldn't. We went easy on Joey and old Zoe, worked them slow and fed them like kings so as their coats were shining in the sun as bright as a new penny. And the ploughing match between Father and Harry Medlicott was all the talk at school too, but I had a hard time of it. Everyone said Father was on a hiding to nothing. Even Billy Bishop and he were my best friend. Even Billy said Father must have been mazed in the head if he thought he could win. And I'd say something like, you don't know Joey like I do, or we got 2 horses and he's got 1 tractor, or when I could think of nothing else I would just say, wait and see. But I never believed any of it, even when I was saying it. I knew in my heart of hearts, like everyone did, that it were hopeless. Joey was maybe 15 by now and Zoe 20 near enough, but if they'd been half their age it wouldn't have helped. Horses cannot plough as fast as tractors. That was all there was to it. There was lots of friends at school wanting us to win. Just about everyone liked Father more than Harry Medlicott. But even so, they all said we hadn't got a chance, and I knew they was right. November the 6th it were going to be. I can mind that well enough because the night before was bonfire night, and I was watching Father sharpening up the plough for the last time, and I could see the fire from the big house up the hill in the silver of the ploughshare. Old Farmer Northley had picked out Candlelight Field on Mr. Arnold's farm as the best place. 3 acres, almost square it is, with hedges all around down by the river. There was people coming from miles around to watch, and I knew we couldn't win, not a chance in a million. It'll be all right, you know, says Father, and he smiles at me out of the bonfire in the ploughshare. We're going to win, you'll see. He weren't just putting a brave face on it. He really thought we would. Let's say good night to Joey and Zoe, he says, and wish 'em luck. And we did. I prayed that night like I never prayed before. I was up at 4 o'clock the next morning to help Father feed up the horses with the corn mash and hay. We brushed them down and went in for breakfast. When we had finished, Mother had pasties ready for our lunch. She saw us off at the door. She wouldn't come and watch, she said. She had things to do about the house, and she kissed Father on the cheek and went away indoors. Father was a bit took aback by that kiss, and I was too. She didn't do kissing that often. We walked the horses down across Burrow Brim Close towards Candlelight Field. Father and Joey together, and me behind it with Zoe. It weren't just the village folk that was there, it were dozens of other folk too from miles around. Like a fair it was down on Candlelight that morning. Harry Medlicott was waiting for us, hands in his pockets and leaning up against his green Fordson, with his band of cronies all around him. He had such a grin on his great fat face. I could have kicked him. Honest I could. Old Farmer Northley had us all lined up and ready by 6:30. It were grey all around, but you could see the field was parted in 2 with a single furrow. As many good furrows as you can plough by 3:30 this afternoon, says old Farmer Northley. The tractor to the corporal if he wins. 100 bales of best hay to Mr. Medlicott if he wins. And then he ups with his flag and waves it. Father calls out to Joey and Zoe and off they go up the field. Harry Medlicott takes his time, gives the starting handle one good turn, and the Fordson starts up easy as you like. He gives a great wave of his hat, climbs up, and he's off too. As the sun came up through the trees, everyone could see plain enough that Father was already a long way behind. The tractor was ploughing faster, and he was turning faster on the headlands too. Father was falling further and further behind all the time. There were nothing he could do about it, but he kept going, talking to the horses as he ploughed, sweetening them on like he always did. Go on then, Joey, giddy up. There's a boy. Good old girl, Zoe. The crowd were on Father's side, most of them anyways. Everyone loves a loser, I thought, and there was tears coming in my eyes, and I couldn't stop them neither. They were all clapping and whistling and cheering him every time he turned. So was I, but it didn't do Father nor the horses much good. I wanted to run off. I didn't ever want to look, but I had to. I was there at the end of the furrow each time Father came back, and he would give us a smile, and I would try to give as good a one back. They weren't at all easy, I can tell you. By the time old Farmer Northley called a stop for lunch, everyone could see the match was already as good as over. Harry Medlicott and his green Fordson had almost finished their half of the field. He had ploughed 48 furrows and Father had done 15. I watched Harry Medlicott as he sat up against the hedge eating his lunch with his friends all around him, and I hated him more than ever. You could hear them laughing out loud clear across the field. I sat with Father eating our pasties. We had a bigger crowd around us, 'tis true, but we hadn't got much to celebrate, had us? More like a funeral it were. Joey and Zoe stood nearby, munching into their feed sacks, and then Father and me led them down to the river for a good long drink. They needed it. Drank and drank they did, and we watched them. A kingfisher went by quick as a twick. He went and sat on a branch. Good luck that is, Father said. He put his hands on my shoulder. I am not done yet, not by a long chalk. You know the story of the hare and the tortoise, do you? No, says I. Well, I do, he says, and he gets down on his knees and drinks with the horses. After a bit he stood up and was wiping his mouth with his hand. Suddenly he's smiling. There's a thing, he says, looking back up the field. She came after all. I hoped she would. What's she up to? And there was Mother, walking round Harry Medlicott's tractor, having a good look. Then she was coming across the plough towards us. Farmer Northley says you've got 10 minutes till you start again, she says. You all right? How's the leg? It'll do, Father says. Glad you came, Maisie. Horses are ploughing well. They may be old, but they're as good as ever. And then I saw Father was limping as he walked away, and Joey was nuzzling his neck hair like he did. At noon, Farmer Northley waved his flag again. On you go, Joey, Father calls out. There's a good girl, Zoe. And they took the strain and off they went up the field, the plough cutting clean. I can mind how I stood there and watched him with my heart full of pride for him, and I breathed in the smell of the earth. Nothing like the smell of new turned earth. A cold metal smell it is, but clean and good like the first breath of life. Harry Medlicott was spitting on his hands and rubbing them, still laughing and joking with his friends he was. He turned the starting handle over once, twice, 3 times. Nothing happened. He tried again and again and again. All it did was cough and splutter. Father had done a whole furrow by now and was turning. Still, the tractor wasn't starting. Then all Harry Medlicott's friends were running over to give a hand, pulling this and pushing that, and they was arguing too. There was lots of shaking heads and shouting going on. A little light of hope lit up inside me. I could hear Harry Medlicott shouting that they should get out of the way and stand back. He was hopping mad, and I liked that. I liked that a lot. He spat on his hands and tried again. It didn't work. The Fordson wouldn't work. It wouldn't start. Someone else tried the handle, then someone else. No one could start him up, and Father had ploughed another furrow. A couple of hours later, and the tractor engine was in bits, and Harry Medlicott was bending over, his head inside the tractor, his great fat bottom out in the air, and I was happy as a lark. A couple of hours later, and the tractor engine was in bits, and Harry Medlicott was bending over, his head inside the tractor, his great fat bottom in the air, and I was happy as a lark. Father was plodding on behind her horses, and I was counting every furrow. He had done 35 furrows by now, but I could see he was tiring with every one. Mother and me stood side by side and cheered him on. We cheered him at every turn till our throats were raw with it. I knew, and she knew, and everyone knew that maybe, just maybe, a miracle might happen. Father knew it too. He could see well enough for himself what was going on, and he was giving Mother and me a bigger smile each time he came back towards us to turn. The sweat was pouring off him, and I could see there was pain in his face now too. Time and again he staggered and stumbled to his knees. He had to call the horses to a stop, and every time he fell he was slower getting to his feet again. He had done 48 furrows by now, as many as the tractor. All he had to do was keep going. We had almost forgotten about the tractor. We shouldn't have. I looked across the field. It was together again. Harry Medlicott was waving everyone back and spitting on his hands. He tried the handle. The beggar started first time. He clambered in and roared off up the field, catching Father with every second. When he passed him, a great groan went up from all over, except for his little band of cronies, but I tell you, that groan weren't nothing compared to the groan inside me. I was sick to my stomach. Harry Medlicott would win now. Nothing could stop him. We were done for, and we all knew it.